Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of August 31st, 2020. This horoscope is brought to you by 1millionnights.com. We have a really active and powerful sky playing out all throughout the week, and this is where we have so many conversations in the sky that I am not really sure where to begin and which energy to speak about first, because this is almost like a multifaceted sky. There is a lot of tension and conflict and a very harsh reality check in the sky, but at the same time we also have trines, supremely harmonious conversations which represent blessings, celestial help, divine intervention. So, the general picture can change so very quickly and suddenly, especially for we also have a very active Uranus, the planet of surprises, unexpected changes. But of course, everything depends very much on us, our attitudes, our worldviews, our feelings, and what it is that we desire to accomplish at this time. Because at every reality check, we are confronted to observe a situation from a rather objective perspective. Of course, not 100% because that would be impossible, but yet, an objectivity can represent the meeting point of our inner truth and external reality, so it always represents a kind of compromise or having to adapt. Even if adaptation means that we're willing to fight it, we're willing to overcome our limitations, that if we deem so that we don't have to change, that we don't really have to adapt our own inner situations, then the only chance is for us to somehow try and preserve our situations, try and preserve our inner truth, our perspective, so we force the outside to change. It's not always the best idea, but that is one expression of adaptation. So especially when we have Mars in its home sign, some people can take this energy to surrender, to overcome their obsession, so to speak, while other people find this extremely empowering and they're willing to fight for their truth and whatever they believe in. So this is where it is really, really up to us how we use this energy, because naturally the squares do represent conflict, they do represent divergence, a frustration, maybe anger, especially with Mars involved. But at the same time we can turn this into motivation and also a valuable source of life experience. And the trines, they are basically free celestial blessings, where all that we have to do is tap into that energy and use it in our own personal advantage, or for noble causes like solidarity, compassion, humanitarianism, etc. And we also have sextiles in the sky, so that makes the energy of the trines even more influential, because the sextile is a harmonious celestial aspect, which, it depends so much on our action choices, stepping out of our comfort zone, where we take initiation and basically use this energy, use the divine guidance and celestial inspiration, and it can lead us to breakthrough and success, more so than ever when there's also beautiful and very harmonious trines in the sky. Now, it's not just about the aspects which the planets form with each other, but we also have two very powerful energy shifts after the second half of the week, where Mercury and Venus, roughly at the same time as in the 5th of the month, as in the month of September, prepare to leave their current positions in the sky. Mercury is preparing to leave its exaltation sign of Virgo and enter into the sign of Libra, where Venus is preparing to leave Cancer and enter the sign of Leo. And of course, if all of this wasn't enough, on the 1st or 2nd of September, depending on where you are on the planet, we also have a very magical revelatory and emotional full moon taking place in the sign of Pisces. And this full moon, speaks together in a harmonious celestial conversation, a sextile with Uranus, and a trine with the Sun, illuminating the moon from the sign of Virgo. So this celestial phenomenon is bound to, either fill us with epiphanies, sudden realizations, clarity, truth, maybe unconscious patterns that we need to change coming to the surface. And, it's also a very karmic position where, karma can surprise us, delight us with completions or with unexpected turns and twists of events. May they be material in nature, because Uranus is in the earthly sign of Taurus, or may they be truths or ideas or realizations, communication, or massive epiphanies, which basically offer us the mental schematic, like an architect dreams the building or the structure into existence, and only after the architect basically puts it on paper and the idea is born even physically, the same way as the architect creates its masterpiece, we can basically dream our desires into existence, because we can, symbolically take the dream as in the inner schematic, and when we try and do something physical, palpable, take action, choices, initiative, or ambition ourselves to accomplish it, even if it's just a spiritual act, it is already similar to the architect actually drawing the building, the schematics, putting it on paper, where we give a big chance to the universe and the divine forces to turn it into reality. And this is where Neptune holds sextiles with Pluto and Jupiter. So, without a shadow of a doubt, this energy of creating dreams and making them into reality is a big karmic theme of this period. But in the following, let's just try to break down this energy and see how it can influence us. Well, the first and most relevant energy, without doubt, is Mars holding the square with Saturn. Of course, this isn't anything new. The two malefics, Mars the lower malefic and Saturn the higher malefic, have been holding this square for a couple of weeks now. And what it means and how its symbolism enters the world is very obvious. It is basically the battle between the individual protecting its sovereignty, its rights, its freedom, its goals, its highest principles, and Saturn in Capricorn is the symbol of centralized power, the limitations, the global turmoil, the economic, political, pandemic disaster that is basically deconstructing our old sense of normality, the old paradigm, the old order. So this big theme continues this all throughout this week as well. And fortunately, Mars is advancing in his home sign of Aries, so the square is going to be weaker and less aggressive, but we're really not out of the woods just yet, because on the 11th of September, Mars goes retrograde and then it will go backwards, and the square is going to perfect itself one more time, with the difference that this time it is Mars going to be retrograde and Saturn will eventually go direct. Now personally, this can be a period of frustration, of melancholy, when we kind of feel that our limitations are suffocating us, they're taking away our freedom. But like every square, even though this is the square of the malefic, so it is very, very influential, we can use ambition, determination, tapping into the sovereignty of our wills, our instincts, our inner power, Mars, in order to navigate out of it one way or another. For some people, surrender and giving up on certain very big goals or dreams is one way this energy can play out. For other people, as I said, it's the total opposite, where it just ambitions them even stronger, and naturally they will try everything in their powers to navigate out of the restrictions by either eliminating them or finding a middle way. The problem is that this square gets a little bit more complicated because Venus also holds a square with Mars, and she opposes, first of all, Pluto and then Saturn towards the very end of the week. So this is basically like a T-square where Mars is aggressed by both Saturn and Venus. And this can be a very emotionally unclear, turbulent, melancholic, even aggressive period. This can represent like a emotional revolution, rebellion, when you just have enough. You know, where every kind of limitation in your life, may it be external one, for example, the uncertainty of the future, something that all of us together collectively are experiencing in the present moment. May it be your own personal limitations, for example, problems with your career, with your job, maybe not feeling appreciated enough, or maybe having to do something that you don't truly love and enjoy for the sheer sake of survival. Well, all of these things can really trigger an emotional reaction right now. We may be feeling extremely vulnerable, where we just had enough and we need a very powerful change in our lives. But because this is a square and Mars is involved here, Mars is one of the dominant planets here, well, chances are, regardless of how we feel, it is not really a good moment to make any sudden decisions, because Venus also rules currency, finances, our wealth, and this aspect, making a very uninspired decision to rage quit, for example, or to risk, or to, start a legal battle or a war, is really not advised right now, because, you have to wait until this energy clears. You have to wait until Mars gets into a more peaceful and, work-oriented position, because then you can make safe and sound decisions and follow them through with action. Now, of course, Venus's aspects and, this T-square with Mars can also represent problems, conflicts, discussions within a family, because Cancer rules family, the household. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just, family. It can be shared accommodation, people who you live with, people who are part of your lives just as if they would be family. So this can spell conflicts, or this can also spell like divergent interests, everyone needing something else, everyone having to go their separate ways. So this can represent very complicated decisions, discussions, communications, talk within the family. It can also represent like the start of a legal action, changes within the career, changes at work, changes in your financial situation. Maybe if you have a mortgage or a loan, or have some kind of obligations, maybe this can represent a rather unfavorable change there. But basically this might also represent a karmic wake-up call that you need to work on this and eliminate them in your life. So basically this Venus aspect can make us feel that everything that is blocking us, limiting us in our lives, it is very urgent, that we have no choice but to very quickly think of something in order to take the cross off of our shoulders. Because after all, Venus is also our feelings, everything that we love and hold dear. And when, Venus is aggressed by Saturn and Mars, she tends to be very emotional. So that can represent a massive energy of unhappiness. And that unhappiness may be the determining force which can motivate us to make changes and not give up. But of course, this requires a lot of thinking and tactics, so no sudden moves, no big risks, and no rage quitting, because that is really uninspired right now. Of course, talking about Venus, it is her opposition with Pluto, which may be the most influential energy. Because, this can also represent not just, conflict and a termination of a relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to just represent favorable changes where you kind of ambition yourself and change your situation. May it be within a relationship, within a family, shared accommodation, a job, etc. It can also represent temptation, because Pluto is a rather manipulative power, so it can represent either infidelity and, sexual problems within a relationship, but it can also represent, financial and material temptations which seem too good to be true, but they might require a very heavy compromise, where you have to compromise your inner truth, your sense of self-worth, Venus in Cancer, or all of your other relationships. So, this can be a very confusing and very tricky, tempting energy. And last but not least, Pluto is the hand of fate. It can also represent fated terminations, endings, or transformation. And since Pluto is retrograde, quite the opposite can also be true, where something from your distant past, maybe a relationship, a person, a connection, is resurrected, revived in your life. But whenever Pluto opposes Venus, well, it can also represent a very tricky financial situation where, there are going to be sacrifices, losses. There are going to be, if you have obligations, duties towards a person, a company, debts, loans, etc. Well, chances are that right now they're going to be very, very influential in a limiting way, or in a way that make you very uncomfortable, or maybe fearful for your future. So this can also represent a big wake-up call for us to resolve everything that stems from the past, which is financial, or which has to do with duties and obligations in nature. And emotionally speaking, within a relationship, Venus opposing Pluto is all about power games. Who has control? Who has the last word? Whose word is more influential? Who makes the decisions? And, each side wants to be in equality with each other. But, equality within a long-term relationship is not very straightforward, because compromises are built on compromises. There is a lot of forgiveness, tolerance, etc. So this aspect can really, really stir up some, long-term problems that were lingering there, or it can pull to the surface old hurts and pains which were not expressed at the time when, they happened. So this is a very delicate energy here. Fortunately, Venus receives a beautiful and harmonious trine from her higher octave Neptune. So this kind of means that even though things can be a little bit grim and uncomfortable, even if our emotions may be strongly stirred up, there is always divine guidance and self-care in the picture, where we can just choose compassion, solidarity, empathy, and not vengeance. And, when nothing else is available in our lives to help us, especially emotionally or even materially, well, then we still have an ace in our sleeves, which is divine intervention, our connection to the source and spirituality, that Neptune. Or it can also represent, for example, art, music, escapism in a positive sense here, that can just help us navigate the heartache, the problems, the emotional turmoil. And it's also a really, really good energy for artists and creative people and those who seek love and romance. Now, of course, there is a other trine, a supremely harmonious celestial conversation in the sky, where the Sun in Virgo holds a trine with Uranus from the Earth sign of Taurus. Now, this is really, really positive, because this is Earth energy and it is a blessing. And Uranus is the planet of surprises, And Virgo is the sign of service to others, problem solving, the practicality of our minds, our masteries, our skills and talents. So whenever these two planets speak together in harmony from an earth sign, well, this can represent breakthrough, solutions, technology, software, planning, or, scientists and professionals joining forces together, creating alliances, groups, which can be very productive, which can birth a lot of solutions, regardless if it's scientific, for example, this coronavirus situation, may it be economical, political strategies. It can also represent the most revolutionary and futuristic ideas being implemented. It can simply represent inner power to simply solve problems, use our minds, our intellect, our ingenuity to think of solutions, to open our minds and dare to go intellectually, mentally, where we haven't gone before, to step out of our comfort zone and think, dream really, really big. Look at the big picture, how we can succeed. But at the same time, it can also represent new inventions, epiphanies. But when I say epiphanies, this is earth signs, so it's not like, very philosophical and spiritual, but this is practical solutions. A plus B equals C, like really, really useful epiphanies, which can, for example, this is an example I just have to speak about. The scientist Mendeleev, the inventor of the periodic table, well, before he actually put together the periodic table, he was really, really brainstorming, trying to figure out a system of how to organize the elements into the table. Everyone knows this. And, he was really, really trying to come up with the most logical, simple, and ingenious solution. And he just couldn't succeed when one night he went to bed to rest naturally, and the periodic table in its current format appeared to him in his dream. So that was a massive epiphany, which was, a very Uranian kind of manifestation, because it was like a divine download, but a very practical, palpable, rational, scientific one, which made a lot of sense. Now, this is one of the ways on how this energy can manifest, because, the conscious mind kind of grasps the problem which needs a solution, and we try to come up with something rational, logical, which makes sense, which kind of guarantees a breakthrough. But, the rational mind and our conscious mind has a lot of limitations, obstacles. It is very sensitive to our routines, to our surroundings. We need a lot of comfort in our lives, even psychological comfort. But when the rational mind goes quiet, the desire to come up with the solution still remains there, but it is passed on to the unconscious, and that is where our true intellectual power, basically, our true genius lies, and it just gets the command to come up with whatever you need a solution for, and voila, it can suddenly, unexpectedly enter your mind as a finished product, and all you need to do, what Mendeleev did, draw it or crystallize it, work with it, and it can offer really powerful solutions. And if this energy is perfectly valid globally, well, then this is good news for everyone, because chances are a lot of problems are gonna be solved under this energy. And if this wasn't enough, Venus, the ruling planet of Taurus, also forms a sextile with a Mercury. So this is, a really good energy for any kind of financial solutions, bankings, currency, values, investments, etc. So you might really get the right ideas, the right plans. May they come as communication, may they come from a professional, from a friend, from family, etc. This is a really, really good energy. And if all of this wasn't enough, Mercury, especially at the beginning and middle of the week, is going to hold the same kind of conversation, a trine, with Jupiter and Pluto from the sign of Capricorn. Now this connects the earth sign of Virgo with Capricorn, so this is good news for even the global situation. Because on one hand, Mars and Saturn together are deconstructing the old order. That's perfectly true, and there's not much we can do to prevent it, but this energy doesn't even want to prevent it. This starts the reconstruction, and first of all, Mercury, in our minds, in our ideas, in our communication, in our professional or lucrative relationships with each other. So this is a really good energy, not just individually, but also collectively. It is the most wonderful aspect to learn new things, to, start new education, start new courses, new studies, because, Jupiter and Pluto in the sign of Capricorn can represent a highly influential teacher, a very strong expert with a lot of experience that can just take you under its wing, but it can also represent self-learning. It can also represent the valuable lessons and know-how and practicality of all your past professional experiences or regarding your skills and talents. It can play out in a number of very positive ways which simply offer solutions to our problems. Especially Pluto and Mercury, well, that is a change. That is the energy of change and transformation, alchemy, where Mercury can represent the formula, so to speak, the schematics, and Pluto, naturally, the strength, the force, the alchemical power to catalyze the transformation, and chances are something totally new can be born, and that is why it's a really good and lucky, actually, opportunity that these conversations take place from Earth signs, because all of us need a lot of, beneficial and positive Earth energy in the present moment. And Jupiter with Mercury a trine can also represent just simply lucky breakthroughs, lucky communications, being at the right place at the right time, everything that you communicate, maybe asking for help, asking for an advice, asking for any kind of guidance, especially professional one. Well, it can just connect you with the most ideal professionals and those people who are more than willing to help and do a really, really good job. And then we have, on the 1st or 2nd of September, a very powerful full moon in the sign of Pisces, which can represent so very many different things, because the main aspect that this full moon holds is with Uranus. So it is definitely some kind of revelation, the truth hitting us, coming to the surface, especially emotional, psychological truth that stem from our unconscious minds. This is one layer of that energy. And another layer is truth and secrets being exposed on the world stage or in our personal lives. But anyhow, it is something that was almost expressively hidden or kept secret from us. As I say, either individually, maybe your circle of friends or family, etc., your job, or collectively centralized power and all the secrets, the skeletons in the closet that are being exposed and revealed. And the sign of Pisces is a very influential energy in this perspective, because not only are we going to, look at the secrets that are being revealed and exposed, but it also represents a very powerful emotional reaction and a decision and a choice which changes everything. Because Uranus, that is what Uranus does. It is the planet which suddenly changes and turns around everything. But of course we have a separate video about this full moon and how it's likely to play out. And another thing I would like to mention is that this may also have some kind of physical manifestations as well, because the sign of Pisces, it is the water, the sea, the ocean. Uranus, the crust of the earth, especially in the earth sign of Taurus. So this can represent tsunamis, the destructive force of water, very unusual weather phenomenon, weather activities. It can also represent earthquakes or some kind of seismic activity, especially one which might have to do with the sea floor or the ocean floor, the tectonic plates. But even if it doesn't manifest, physically, emotionally and socially, it is definitely going to bring forth an earthquake, a shock, a revelation, something big being exposed that will kind of trigger all of us one way or another. Now on the 5th of the month, as I said, both Mercury and Venus are going to be in anaretic degrees of the signs they are in the present moment. So Venus in Cancer and Mercury in Virgo. And an anaretic degree amplifies the symbolism of the planet greatly, and usually its shadow expression is emphasized on. So Mercury in Virgo, well, that can represent a lot of overthinking. It can represent, where your brain just gets out of control and it tries to find solutions. It tries to think, analyze, criticize even everything that goes on in your life. And if you have decisions at that time, well, an anaretic Mercury in Virgo can split the hair not just in 4, into 1,000. So at that time, if you are a little bit hyper, if your monkey mind is taking over your life that day, don't worry, because that energy is short-lasting. The next day, Mercury moves into the sign of Libra. A sign where, I'm not saying that it's uncomfortable in, but Libra is duality. It is choices, decisions, legal issues, maybe something that has to do with justice. So if you have any court cases, are waiting for official communication, have contracts to sign, this is a favorable energy, but Mercury in Libra really thinks everything through. So be ready for having to be like an analyst, a judge, a legal representative for you personally in your own life. So this is something that all of us will have to do, or at least think about, as Mercury enters into the sign of Libra. But it is a very good energy for new partnerships, communication, travel of information, documents, even travels, international travels, diplomatic relationships, even international diplomatic relationships, especially at the first stages after Mercury has entered this part of the sky, because later on, unfortunately, Mercury and every other planet which follows Mercury into Libra, as in the Sun and Venus, will start to hold oppositions with Mars and Aries, and that energy could be a little bit frustrating, and that will be a moment when we will have to make some kind of decision or take action, ready or not. But before we get there, we still have the most beneficial facade of Mercury in Libra, where it can bring out a lot of new and fresh things like communication, businesses, new partnerships, contracts, opportunities, solution to legal problems, legal help, for example. And even, people who are single and looking can have a chance to connect to each other, especially via the internet or technology, and this can be the first moment when they just become aware of each other, and something starts from there and it evolves further. Venus is also going to be in the anaretic degree of Cancer, and that might not be the very best energy, because she is still holding the opposition mostly to Saturn, which can mean temptation, especially financial temptation, where you just want to satisfy all your pleasures, especially emotional pleasures. For example, having this and that, traveling, beautification, cosmetic or aesthetic changes to make you feel better, buying a lot of clothes, buying expensive, luxurious items to make you feel better, etc. So be very careful at around the 5th, 6th of the month, because this is a big danger of overspending, or maybe spending money that we do not possess, or spending someone else's money. From a totally different perspective, it can also represent an emotional up and down, because if we have a lot of unfulfilled desires in our lives, or for example, if we really desire a relationship and we're single and it's just not happening, this can leave us feeling extremely unhappy, extremely frustrated. And an aggravated Venus, especially in the watery sign of Cancer, is not a pleasant energy, because she will express her true feelings very quickly, and chances are it can hurt the feelings of others. So at this time, regardless if we tap into the most positive or negative expression of this energetic Venus, for example, like overspending, extreme generosity, making promises that we cannot keep, or melancholy and, being really dissatisfied with our lives, regardless of how this plays out, it's not really a good idea to act upon it or to make any choice and decision when we are in this state. It is much better to wait until Venus enters the sign of Leo, where she is really courageous, ambitious, fiery, attractive, magnetic. She knows her value, she knows her worth, and she is not shy to express herself, to show who she is, what she desires, what she thinks about herself, and what she deserves to have. For example, the admiration and love of everyone. So Venus in the sign of Leo is a really good energy for public people when their magnetism is even bigger, stronger, more tempting, so to speak. It is a really good time for passion, sensuality, trying different passion or sensual based experiences, if you know what I mean. It is a really good time to, fall madly and deeply in love, because Leo rules the heart, and Venus, of course, is our emotions and everything that we love and our attraction. But of course, Venus is very impulsive here, so commitment and promises and everything that has to do with a long-term future is not a good idea. We have to just take it as it is. Random, spontaneous, very strong passion which just demands to be lived out. But after it's lived out, we may feel totally differently about everything. So it's not a good idea to make a lot of romantic, emotional, etc. promises only after basically you live it out and you transform it into an experience. And if the love and passion is still there, well then it's absolutely perfect. But if the love and passion has dissipated, well then that is why it's wise to wait and just live it out. Try it, experience it. Have the courage to, dive into it. And this isn't just about romance, sensuality, sexual activities, but it is about everything that we love. Trying a food, an activity, a hobby, an experience, extreme sports, for example. It is a really good energy to just try out everything that excites our senses. And Venus in Leo is all about the smaller or big pleasures in life. We're in her sign of Taurus. Venus is also about all the small and big pleasures of life, but that is where it is her value, it is adding to her comfort, to the consolidation of her position. But in Leo, she is, much more passionate and impulsive. It is very quick and magnetic. She doesn't want long-term pleasures. She wants here, now, immediately to experience whatever, sparks up desire in her heart. And of course, Venus in Leo is very good to spice up your romantic life, your intimate life. Go and experience the most unique, exquisite things with your partner. And it can also be a period when smaller financial risks, because we may not forget that Venus has so much to do with currency, finances, money, values, etc. So this might be an energy when smaller investments and when following your gut feeling can lead to a greater benefit. And at the same time, Venus in Leo is all about the joy, the happiness, the pleasure, the contentment of the inner child. So this energy can simply turn us into big children where we just, our own unique ways, relive our childhood, especially the activities, or maybe we just desire to meet people who were very important figures in our childhood, etc. So this is a really good, beautiful, playful, light-hearted, uplifting energy in the sky. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope that this horoscope was useful. And please remember, I know that there is a lot of tension in the sky right now. Not just because of Venus, but because of that ongoing Mars-Saturn square. So there is gonna be disappointment, melancholy, frustration, anger, dissatisfaction. But we also have a massive celestial blessing where the sky, the universe, also offers us a lot of help and inspiration in so many different ways, as you can just listen through this horoscope to see the different expressions of the blessings that we're gonna have. And this is where we really have to use it and tap into it, because this is gonna be one of the more lighter, uplifting, miraculous, positive moments of this upcoming autumn. Chances are, after Mars goes retrograde and will start to hold the squares once again with the Capricorn planet, well, that is going to be a very tough and strong and violent energy, which is really, really going to cause all of us, especially collectively, to feel that we are stuck in the quagmire and we just have to fight for survival. Because, Venus, the ruling planet of Libra, is going to be opposing that Mars and also squaring the Capricorn planets later on in the autumn. So that is going to be a very heavy time where it is not just our own personal lives that reflect this turmoil, but Venus and Libra, all the diplomatic relationships in outer reality, on the world stage, on the international stage, are going to start to change. Value systems are going to have to change one way or another. So that may represent the repartition of resources, or the government or centralized power having to do something about the economic crisis. But this is where they have to do something for real, not just promises. And of course, it can change a lot of diplomatic relationships internationally. So that means relations and contracts, partnerships, alliances between countries. So that kind of sounds like a lot of stress and a lot of uncertainty, basically. So that is why my advice is, let's just enjoy all the blessings this week and next week have to offer, because we won't have that many moments of respite, moments of joy and lightheartedness and solutions and celestial blessings until the very end of the year. So we really, really have to use this time as best as we can. Well, thank you once again, and remember, if you'd like a personal reading, just log on to 1millionnights.com and find your dedicated advisor. And I'm going to close this horoscope by wishing you a wonderful, fantastic, magical, blessed, and revelatory full moon in Pisces. Thank you for listening. Until next time, bye for now.